Alrighty then, let's see how this is working. We got, yeah, it's cool. So I just popped up on the camera there because I built this cool little thing. I call it my cameraman. I'm gonna be making these automated videos. Well, not automated. I'm making these videos of like active software development projects I'm working on, and the problem I encountered right at the very beginning when I started thinking about doing this is that my normal workflow, I have a 6 monitor setup, but I actively use the bottom 3 all the time while I'm working, and the top 3 I usually just put things that are either running in the background or email or something. I usually turn the top 3 off. I only turn them on if they're coming in handy. But as I was thinking about how I might record videos of development tasks, things like that, I started thinking like, okay, I'll practice just turning off all but the center monitor and just work on one, because I can record from one monitor, but recording from several monitors, I tried to do some key bindings where I could do some hotkeys on the keyboard, but it was getting really confusing because I've got, as you saw, I've got a little camera that can be down in the bottom right, and I've got this big view, and also no camera at all. And then to bounce back and forth between that and my 3 monitors with key bindings it wasn't working well. I was losing track of what I was doing, just trying to keep that in sync. So what I decided to do was build this little guy. And as you saw there, I wheeled my mouse and it switched my camera, and now I'm down in the bottom right. And that's what this guy does. He watches everything that I'm doing. I've got a Wemo light switch from Belkin. He's monitoring that. Whenever I've got my camera on, I need to have my lights on as well. So I've got a green screen behind me, and if that thing's not lit properly, then the transparency effect doesn't work, and you also can't really see my face that well if the lighting's not on. But on the flip side, the lighting's pretty bright, so I don't want the lighting on if I don't need it. So this guy, he monitors what I'm doing. If I have moved the mouse recently, or typed on the keyboard recently, this little box here has recent input will tick, and these numbers are ticking up. As long as I don't move the mouse, that number will tick up. If I push a key on the keyboard, that one resets. And after a certain amount of time, I think it's 5 or 10 seconds, it's going to flip to say I don't have recent input. And almost all this stuff I've got configurable, and I can move these little sliders around to change all these settings, and I've tweaked the heck out of it to kind of get it to where I like. But he automatically will switch up to that big camera if I'm not using the keyboard and mouse, and he turns the camera on and off based on whether I'm talking. So, and there's also this little thing, if I'm doing something down here, he turns the camera off. And the width and height of that little box down there, I've got set with these sliders here. If I set it way down, now it's not going to turn it off very much. And then I stopped talking, so the camera went off. And it also turned off my light. And if I start talking again for a while, and it's all set based on different timers, like in my lighting tab, like how long between when the light's been turned off, is it allowed to do it again? Because I don't want a strobe effect with the light kind of punching me in the face. I've also got options on like how many seconds it has to be, the camera has to be hidden before it'll show it again, how long. There's also a cool effect once it goes into the big camera timer. Right, so this little number down here starts ticking up. And what that's doing is, even if I move the mouse, it won't turn off the big camera. I've got a slider right there. The minimum time on big camera right there. Yeah, I've got it set at 3 seconds. So again, I didn't want that coming on and going off, coming on and going off. So a lot of tweaking. And then the main thing that I wanted this thing to do is track when I'm working on the monitors. So as I'm sliding the keyboard or the mouse around, he's going to keep track of where I'm actively developing. And again, I don't want to be on the screen if I'm not actually talking. So if I'm just sitting here working and not saying too much, or if I just do a quick random comment, it's not going to show my face, so I don't have to worry about being on camera all the time. And then it'll also turn off the lights. So it's pretty cool. I've got a thing that sets how long the lights have to be on before it'll do the camera. Like I can turn it up. Wait for it to go off. All right, now we got the camera off, so I'll start talking again. In a moment, the lighting will kick back in, and then we'll see when the camera kicks on. Now that time there wasn't as much of a, sometimes when the camera kicks on, there's a bit of a burst of light, and that's because it's still adjusting. So I can kind of tweak these numbers to make the outcome a little bit more consistent. If I set it down to 0, it gets really messed up because it's coming on at the same time as the light, and the thing's trying to figure out how to do the green screen effect all at once, and it didn't work out well. So trying to get all these things adjusted just right is a little bit of a guessing game. And I'll probably have to tweak this thing a bunch more, but also made it so I can highlight my mouse cursor and turn that effect on and off, or I can make it bigger. I think somewhere between 50 and 75 is about right. 75 is not too bad, but I think 50 is good. I'm probably going to add effects to this later so that when I click, it'll probably do a little like radar sonar kind of ping animation. As I'm clicking on the screen, the viewers will be able to see what I'm clicking on. And I'll probably do a different animation for left and right click, maybe just different colors. But my little user interface is pretty cool. Nothing too fancy, but it's all built from scratch. There's no third-party controls in here. And almost everything that I've got in here is composed of components that are part of the framework I'm going to be releasing. So this actual application took me like 2 weeks to build, but I was also working on kinks in the framework components as well as designing a bunch of new components. So if I were to build this from scratch today with all that stuff already in place, it would probably take me like a day or two. And my broadcast software, which is, I'll bring him down, get this nice effect here because it's pulling from the same monitor it's on. But the broadcast software has all this stuff, and my app is interacting with it. So the trick is getting all those interactions to get pushed through to the broadcast software properly. It was interesting. Every time it does transitions, it's got to set all the effects right. So I'm fading the camera in and out, but when I move from left to right monitors, I use a slide effect. So there's quite a bit of steps that go into getting everything synchronized, and I've got a whole bunch of different states I can put it in, or I can manually flip it over to kind of like a credit scene. I'll probably put a button in my app for that, but I don't have a button yet. And if you see that I put it in the wrong scene, then it corrects it for me. I also got a view where I can show all my monitors at once. Ooh, that was fun. But the camera guy doesn't know about those views yet, and I'm not sure if I'm ever even going to use them. I just made them just in case, but I can't really think of a very useful situation where I'm going to want to show all three monitors. And then I set it up too so that I can have a keyboard shortcut to turn the cursor on and off, just in case I am wanting to toggle that while I'm presenting. So that's basically my app. Now with this in place, I can focus on actually working and just let the cameraman do his thing. And the cool thing is, uses almost no CPU. I think the time it is spending right now is because I've got it set where it's synchronizing the mouse at about 100 frames a second. Up until I added that, I don't think I had any CPU usage. I'm actually curious. I'm going to turn it down and see. Yeah, now he's down at 0. I like that better. I don't like using 1%. So that's my app. If I turn that down, I gotta. There's a little bit more lag with the pointer. I've also got a little bit of a gradient effect on it. We'll probably do better CPU. If I put that as a solid. Let's see. He's using a little bit less memory. And yeah, you can't even really tell. I'll probably just leave it on this one. Okay, so if I go to 50, I'll do every 10. A little bit of code there is what keeps the highlight on top, because I've got my cameraman set to float above everything else, but I want my highlight to float above him even. So I have to like pulse this thing to be the top every half second. Otherwise, the other app will win and it'll show above my highlight. So, but there is a brief delay there. When I switch off and back, it goes away, but it's only a half second. Where's my... Okay, yeah, now I'm sitting pretty comfortably at 0. I didn't like seeing 1%. So there's a little bit of lag now on the cursor. But let me see if I turn the speed back up. Now that I've got the solid color instead of gradient. I guess using a gradient was the main thing that was causing it. Just having to draw that gradient. Solid color it is. Yeah, I like that. I got the smoothness and the 0%. So, as you can just see there, I just tweak something in real time. If I turn this off, I can manually control the lighting. When I turn that on, then I give the app control of it. You can see there in the back, that's what the thing looks like if my light's not on. I didn't really build this with the intention of making it for other people to use, but all I really need to make it so that somebody else could use it would be to have a screen where it shows kind of a visualization of the user's monitor layout, and then gives them some options on picking which scenes in OBS to map each monitor to. And then I also have this concept of a little camera and the big camera, but I think that's a fairly standard thing. A lot of people who make YouTube videos and things like this have those kind of configurations. So somebody might want to set theirs up where it doesn't have a big mode, and it'll just be little only or something like that. So doing all those kind of options to make it useful for somebody else, that would be the kind of thing that would take some more time. I'd probably have to put in several more days just to tweak everything and make it real configurable. But for what I need it to do, it's basically done. I could probably tweak this thing indefinitely over the course of the recordings I do, and mess with all the settings on the timings to try to get the transitions to be real seamless. And at the moment, I'm doing all of the transitions using this nifty component I built for setting rules in XAML without having to do code behind, and they're real easy to tweak. But for doing really robust, fine-grained state management of trying to have real firm rules on that might be necessary to get this thing as dialed in as I want, I might have to hand code the state management. But for now, it's all set up using some different conditions, and when conditions are met, it does a command, and the commands have a little bit of smarts in them to make sure, like I have a box down here, so we're just a little bit, that shows whether OBS is currently executing a transition. So anytime I had a big bug earlier where I thought my state management was broken, but it wasn't broken, I was just sending commands before OBS was ready to get them. So there's little delays I have to do, and I have a hard delay of 1/3 of a second on there right now, but I can go down all the way to like 1/10 of a second. But if I do that, I can't really debounce the mouse very much. If I wiggle it on the edge of the screen, it's going to go. So I settled on 1/3 of a second so that if I slide the mouse off the screen real quick, it doesn't actually trigger a state transition. But when I'm coming over here, it's hard to catch it on camera because the transitions are pretty fast. Okay, yeah, there's one when the camera comes up. When the camera comes on right about now, it should come on pretty soon. There it goes. Yeah, that little box ticked briefly. But that just helps me visualize what's happening behind the scenes. And while all this is happening, I'm collecting in the background logging data. Where is it? There it is. I'm a man. So there's all the stuff about when he's changing transitions. And if anything looks weird, I can go through this log and kind of see the order things were happening in and try to figure out what went wrong. And right now I'm not running in debug mode, so my log doesn't have all the kind of like low-level nitty-gritty. This is probably a debug. Let's see if that's a debug log. Nope. I gotta go a little bit further back. Yeah, so this is one of my debug logs. Got a lot more fine-grained information in it, but it also uses a little bit more resources to capture that data and make a bigger file on disk. So turn that off when I'm pretty happy with the way it's working, and I get this nice low CPU usage. I'm back at 1%. So sad. That's so sad. I thought I was down at 0 permanently. Alright, let's go to 25. That's 40 frames a second. That's still pretty smooth. I just can't stand seeing it at 1%. It's still 1%. How aggravating. All right. But this is literally the kind of stuff I plan on covering in my videos. Like, it's going to be me doing actual real development, not just presenting tutorials. I will do some tutorials where I've edited the content down, get rid of some of the faux and things like that. But most of the stuff I'm going to be doing is going to be live, warts and all. Let's see if that's the reason. Very unusual. And this thing's sitting at 1%. Let's see if it's this thing that's making it slow. I wonder if if that's all it was. Let me put this back up at 20. Is 500. What went wrong there? 25, so I'll do half that. So that'll be that's and I'm sitting at 0. My highlight goes away a little bit longer. There might be a better way of getting top state than what I'm doing right now. Yeah, it is sitting at 0 now, even with this high frame rate. I forget, some of my performance is like on this app isn't like completely in my control. I'm using some third-party libraries for communicating with the open broadcast software, and I've looked through the code and it's not so good. It's not worth it to me to redo it at this point, but it is like an area where I see that some of these libraries that people have put together are not that great, but it's good enough for now. And every now and then I'll notice it'll be glitched, like it won't switch the scene or something, and I'll look at my log and everything's there the way it should be, I think. So it's like maybe that was a communication glitch. Hard to know. But as I'm talking, and I've got it on certain screens where they're heavily animated, the app is going to use a little bit more. Right now I've got the audio monitoring screen up. If I go to a boring screen like this one, won't get quite as much traffic on the user interface. Gonna hide that too, even. Well, whatever. See if that's even part of it. All right, just turned off the mouse cursor highlighting. It's still sitting at 1%. So I'll probably look into that separately. I don't think it's related to the mouse highlight. Probably something else. I've got my highlight code set to basically ignore this thing. So I could make that a little bit bigger. Make sure I'm not making it do anything. You'd think it's not gonna be checking itself, but maybe it is. Probably do it this way anyway. Just to make this a little bit more sane. All right, now I'll close him and open him up again. What happened there? I think the automated code cleanup messed it up when I was missing a bracket. Stay more in the 0 range. And I really have no idea. This broadcast software has a plugin in it, and then it does communication interface, and then my app is using another component that hooks up to that communication interface, and I would assume that they're doing nothing most of the time, but that may not actually be the case. It may be doing constant back and forth data, but I can always do a system profile and see where that is. You know, I'll do that live, and why not? I didn't plan on doing any tutorials, but this is the nature of what I'm doing with this thing. Live development. Where did I put perf view? There he is. I'm sitting at 0 right now, which is good. Those changes I made might have sped it up a little bit. I'm not sure if it was actually spending any real time in those portions, but if it was, like when it was hidden, it would have been slamming that property to minimized over and over and over and over. My assumption was that the property is smart enough to see I'm already in that state, so not to do anything. Oh, is he in the view? Yeah, there comes dog. Hi, dog. Hi, Porter. See, he's down here. Yeah, there he is. Porter, you appeared in the middle of the universe. You're floating. Hi. I have a feeling he'll probably do that from time to time. I just turn off the lighting, then it won't do the camera anymore. It lost control for a minute. Now it's got it back. So I'm back at 1%. Porter, you're messing up the green screen, buddy. Nope, now I'm at 0 again. Let's see if I can get it stuck at 1%, and then I'll do a trace. Let's see, I'll just do this anyway. Alright, so I'm doing a system-wide trace. Okay, he's doing 1%. We'll board it. I think that's all you have to do. I forget, I haven't done this in a while. Tutorial. Select. Oh, okay, there he is. Yeah. Machine wide, advanced options. Default should be fine. There we go. Now I got a trace running. I couldn't see it because the cameraman was in the way. I knew I was expecting to see a little bit more going on there, but I am stuck at 1%. So let's stop the collection and see what we got. Oh, he's merging the data. The cool thing is that once it finishes, I can see what the problem was. Almost done and zipping it now. In 20 seconds generated a big trace. Alrighty. I minimize him. Now I want to go to cameraman. And much nicer. It's mostly responding to things that are changing, and most of the things that are changing constantly in the app are the little timers I have that show yeah, it's coming from the timer tick. Another one from timer tick. So those are coming from my audio timer there. That's 8%. And this one's coming from my input timer. Now the input timer is generating a lot of it because there's 2 data points that are active there. And I've got it set doing it every like 10 times a second. And so here's another one on my audio capture. This one's audio capture. So if I turn those timers down, I ought to be able to get my app into a point where it's using considerably less. So on the inputs, oh my, yeah, he's doing that pretty dang frequently. So he's doing that 40 times a second. Let's bump that one up to 200. It's 5 times a second. What's he doing? Yeah, he's just checking to see if I move the mouse. Yeah, 5 times a second is plenty. Then the audio one was using a lot. Now the audio one is monitoring the microphone. I'm only doing that 10 times a second. If I bump that one in half, so 5 times a second. Okay, so I was making an assumption here. I was getting each sample represented 10 milliseconds, so I'll have to do it the let's do it like this. All right, and that'll work out okay. What's this doing? Okay, he's using the timer interval already. He's doing a moving average. So we want to do, we're doing it over 1 whole second there, so we want to do intervals per second. No, if divided by alrighty, I think that should give me the same outcome, and it should allow me to change the interval to whatever I want. This guy for the inputs, yeah, all he's doing is tracking the event times, so that's fine. I could slow this down to whatever and do that twice a second. All right, let's restart. Now, if I made a mistake, it's going to be in the audio capture. I haven't worked on that part in a while. Let's see if it's working. Okay, I'm still getting pretty good numbers there. It's changing. Looks like it's changing. My numbers down here. What am I expecting to see? I'm expecting to see something. It's not happening. What's not happening? Stop camera level. Dark. There's all set at 0. Let's do a debug. Oh, I'm doing. Let's see. This was dividing it by 10 before. Okay, intervals per second. Let's do it this way. I think this is going to be what it was. This 10 was maybe the intervals per second. It wasn't, those weren't. I think it was intervals per second. So let's see. Okay, and I'm getting 5. That makes sense. So let's see if my numbers start showing up properly. Okay, this is a test. All right, I'm getting some numbers down here that look right to me. So I should be getting the camera to come on momentarily. Yep, there it goes. Now this is what my debug logs look like. I'm causing things to change. I won't move the mouse. It'll do the big camera here any second. Okay, big camera is coming up. And there we got the big camera. And then some of this statements up there was it was talking about turning the camera on. Then down here, it noticed that I moved the mouse, so it needed to turn the big camera off. So now I've got that stuff working. My keyboard and mouse detection, I've only got it pinging every half second, so these numbers aren't changing as frequently. That should make that happier. This one is updating, I think, fairly frequently as well. Let me go there. And he's also doing it. Let me see where else I'm doing a. He's got one. What's he doing? Oh, it's every 75 seconds. Who cares? That's the auto refresh to check for other light switches. Okay, that one's at half a second. That one's at half a second. Okay, that guy is low because I want it to be low. Okay, this is the one I need to change. That one I just did. Yeah, this doesn't need to happen 10 times a second. So it is keeping that synchronized 10 times a second. It's not terrible. Let's do it at a half second. All right, now I will rerun. Thank you, Trace. Yeah, perf view, I've got pretty nifty profiling tools that I can turn on when I want to collect some like in-depth data, but when I've already got an app running and it starts misbehaving and I'm not sure why, the perf view tool from Microsoft is indispensable. I can collect things that are going on between processes that I don't even have the code for, and collect them all live simultaneously. So I could even see how my app and this broadcast software are interacting. I'm pointing to my top left monitor because that's where the broadcast software is, but I could see if, for instance, my app was using quite a bit and I might find that it's doing some of the time in the communication or something like that, then I could see if the other app is also doing it. Then I think that maybe the other app's causing the issue, like maybe sending too many commands or something. But I don't think that's the case. I think I was just updating too many things too frequently. And now I'm sitting at 0% pretty comfortably. And I think if I were to do a new trace, just for the heck of it, I'll see that I'll be, let's see, I wonder how long I did the other one. I can't look at it, I guess the whole app is busy. I'll do 15 seconds. Okay, it's gonna take it a while. Go, little guy, go. He's merging. Yeah, I'm still down here at 0%, so I think that was my major issue. Proud of myself that I remembered how to use this thing well enough to live debug that performance issue. I haven't used perf view in quite a while. Oh, check it out, I crashed perf view. I wonder if it crashed because it might have recorded it to the same file or something. I don't know. Let's see when this one was generated. No, trace start time 123. Okay, yeah, that's this one. So it might have overwritten the other trace. Yeah, it looks to me like maybe I didn't provide a file name, so I think I got that runtime crash because the other window was mad because I overrode its data. But anyway. Let's see, look up some symbols. Broken, that sounds fun. I love these little things. I think I looked up everything that I can. So big one's still the property changed. And we'll see where this guy is getting most of his hits from. Yeah, so the audio capture is still my big one. But I do need to do that. And the reason that code hits so many things. So many things are dependent on those numbers. So whenever they change, it has a ripple effect in the whole app. But that's on purpose. That's what it's supposed to do. I could have it grab them even less frequently, but the only way I could really speed that up would be to kind of hand code some of the interactions. I did it a real lazy way. I did a lazy way and it performed well, so there's no need to optimize what's working. But I could probably get that to where I could pull the audio back at 10 times a second and have near zero CPU rather than this 16% that's coming off that, because it's the way all these interactions are happening, it's recalculating a lot of things that really haven't even changed. And some of that goes back to components that I built that could have some improvements. And once those improvements are done, they'll kind of bubble up to this app and anybody else using the components as well. But I have these things called calculated properties, and right now they're not very smart. They're smart enough to know when they need to recalculate themselves, but they can over calculate themselves as well. And they right now, let's say a calculated property might have 5 or 6 dependencies, and if several of those dependencies all change in kind of like 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of order, it's going to recalculate itself at each step. Whereas most of the time, and then technically it'll be correct at every single step, and each one of those changes does produce a new calculation, possibly. So I mean, it's technically correct, but in practice, I really just care about the roll up, the net effect. So I'm planning on having these calculated properties where I could define that I want them to be calculated asynchronously. So rather than calculating every single time it gets a notification, it'll just mark itself as being out of date, and then I define a maximum like age or whatever. So if some of these properties only need them calculated once a second, every half second, 10 times a second, something like that, that would essentially solve that whole problem. And then a lot of these calculated properties depend on each other. They are smart enough not to fire that they've changed when they haven't changed, but just the fact that a lot of them have quite a number of dependencies that they're monitoring means that they're overcalculating, and that's a pretty easy problem to solve. That's already part of the plan, and it'll be interesting to see once I do that. I can do another one of these traces here and see if these numbers get better. I think they should. The reason why it wasn't a priority to work on that in the beginning is that it's a heck of a lot easier to design a really complex set of logic when everything is calculated in real time. Because if things end up having dependencies on themselves, you'll just get a program crash. But if it's happening asynchronously and it has a dependency on itself, and that can happen accidentally, but if it does end up depending on itself, it'll just trigger itself to recalculate over and over and over and over and over and over. And I was worried about how to track that kind of thing to make it so that if it does happen, the developer can identify it and solve the issue. So I just have to, when I go to make the calculated properties, do that. I'll need to design a little test scenario where I set up a circular dependency like that and make sure that I have a way of causing the app to crash, because it should crash. We want it to crash, to fail, not keep pinging itself. But some of those dependencies will be hard to trace. That's what I'm a little nervous about. I'm not sure if the way I'm doing it right now would work for that. So if I can't get the program to crash automatically, then it'll just be left up as a kind of advanced feature that I'll kind of have to make the developer have to do a little work to opt into, because there will be some risk. But hopefully I'll have a nice mechanism where I can detect that situation and generate a crash still. Otherwise, the developer will just look over here and see that his thing's using like 100% CPU and not know why. And looking at one of these traces, you'll see that it's calculating a whole lot, but the trace won't actually drill down to the cause anymore. Right now, everything happens in the order, precisely the order, so I can just look down this tree and see the cause. If they're happening asynchronously, that's not going to be the case. So I'll just build it and see what I come up with. Cool thing is Microsoft's got some pretty cool features exposed through task parallel library stuff that they've done recently, where tasks in a series have linked call stacks, so you can see the causal order. So I might end up having a reason to build that feature using the task parallelism rather than another method. If I do it with tasks, I might be able to trace those call stacks. I don't know if they generate a Stack Overflow with the TPL like stacks. Essentially, that's what I'd want it to do, something kind of like a Stack Overflow to detect that it's in an infinite loop. But anyway, that's where I'm at right now. It was pretty cool that I did a live performance debugging. I've got my app working well. The functionality seems just as good, even though I turned those timers way down. It's still turning the camera on and off. And I've got my really smooth mouse following logic. And I'm still down here at 0%, so that's good. My broadcast software is using a pretty good amount. What the heck is that guy? Go away. Visual Studio has all these background processes. I don't know what they are anymore. I used to know it all, but they've done so much. Most of it very good, but some of the stuff I don't know what it is, so I just kill it. Yeah, so this guy is sitting there at 6%, but he should be. He's doing video. I don't want my guy who all he's doing is watching the mouse and the microphone be doing hardly anything. Okay, good. He's sitting down there below my mouse app. That's pretty good. So it's not really 0. This number is probably like 0.02 or something. I can get a better sense of it using a resource graph. Let's see, there's cameraman. Yeah, so I said 0.2. Look, that's doing about 0.2. So it's kind of fun to look at this stuff. How many handles it's got open? It's definitely going to be using some networking. Well, that's interesting. So it's sending or receiving 1,000 bytes a second. I can see that it's sending very low because it's only telling it to do a couple commands here and there. But the fact that it's receiving data constantly means that application is sending some data about the broadcast software over and over. It's going down now. Interesting. 1,000 bytes a second isn't anything. It's just there is some CPU time in there somewhere. It may have just overinflated that since the monitor had just been running for a short time. There may have been a burst of data that it saw. And it's still looking like it's around. That's next to nothing though. That might just be pings. All this stuff, it's a WebSocket protocol that's implemented using JSON, so not the least efficient, not the most efficient. And I don't know how much handshaking they're doing with little hello, are you there? Hello, are you there? That kind of stuff. If they're pinging a lot, then that could be what that is. But overall, I'm pretty darn happy with this. 0.16, 0.15, my average, so that's doing pretty good. Looks like the average is dropping down the longer it runs. That's real nice. Really nice. You might have noticed I've got these little cups down there. When I do live broadcasting, there's a feature where they can click on my broadcast and send donations to me. So if somebody did do a donation, that's like my little tip jar, like some coins will fly out of the air and land in it. And in this area, it'll show like, hey, thanks Bob for the tip or whatever. I'm planning on putting in the top area up here the title of whatever it is that I'm working on. I just didn't do it right now. That's my company logo. And that's it. That is all I think I'm going to do for now. I'm not going to go through the code. I'm going to do a video breakdown of the code on this, and I'll probably do something fun on the fly, like add some features to it. Like one thing I don't have right now is any changes I make in the interface. If I want to change one of these numbers and have it stick, I've actually got to go edit the code. I've got like these in here as constants. What I want to do is have it so that when I'm changing this, it's I'd have a save button or a revert. Probably put the buttons up here, but anytime there's a change, I might like it, I might not like it, so I might want to be able to revert, and I might even want to have a history of changes. I might have some settings last week that were working really well and I kind of screwed it up. Now I do have data backups that I could always go into and pull. If I just have a config file, and I could pull the config file from last week, but having a little screen in the application where I can actually look at my settings and maybe have a little snapshot, a list of the settings, maybe even compare the settings. I probably won't even add all those features like compare settings, but that would be the kind of thing that would be pretty neat. So I could see that between these two settings, these are the values I changed. And when you're trying to design complex interaction logic like this, where a lot of it is just trying to pick the right magic numbers, you could end up in a situation where you can't remember exactly what you had before, but maybe you've got part of it working better, and then you had part working better, and you need to kind of combine the two. So being able to look at that stuff side by side would have some value. And that was an interesting one. It just did the big camera. I've got this thing, the minimum time on the big camera is 3 seconds, but I don't think that was 3 seconds. I think it was less. Very interesting. And there the camera went off while I was talking. And maybe it should have. The way I've got it defined, it probably was supposed to go off, but tweaking those constants to get it set up just right. I've got these numbers here are monitoring the volume level on the microphone that's in real time. And then what I'm doing is I'm doing moving averages. And then I've got sliders to control how long I have to get data for and what the number has to be for it to count as an event to turn the camera on. And then the numbers as they drop off, like how low does it have to get before I turn the camera off. And then I've got a different counter for when to activate the big camera based on how long I've been talking. I want the big camera to take longer. So that one I might need to have turned up a little higher. For instance, it might be coming on too soon. And then I do have a setting here where I can allow it to go straight to the big camera if I haven't touched the keyboard and mouse in a while. And I'll get the big camera going. Okay, there it is. Now I'll stop talking. And then I'll start talking again, and it should jump right to the big camera because I haven't touched the keyboard and mouse. Turned my light off. I didn't start talking quick enough. So now it's got to wait 5 seconds. I don't want my light coming on and off. Now I should get the big camera. Yep. So there's definitely a lot of tweaking if I want to get this thing looking like Hollywood production. I have more respect for those guys because I think if you're sitting there working a camera, you are in control of everything. Maybe a producer where he's got cameramen working cameras and the producers pushing buttons to switch between which camera's on, which is off. Having the one person who is making those choices intelligently, you probably don't have to have written down rules like on exactly when you might change cameras, but in their minds, even if they don't have written down rules, they are thinking like what's going to be jarring. They don't want to change the camera angles too often, because it makes the audience queasy or something. So the getting all those timings just right so that it doesn't switch the camera too much is really what I am trying to get it locked down in. And that one right there might have been too low. So minimum time on big camera, bump that up to 4. Now we'll see if I start talking, and we'll get some time on the big camera here pretty soon. I got suggested cameras big. All right, move the mouse around a little bit. This number's still ticking down. Okay. Yeah. My effective switch off big camera delay. Yeah, that didn't seem as bad, so I might want to record those numbers. 1.5, 4. I'm pretty happy with how this is working. These I'm not entirely confident in. I just kind of picked arbitrary things, and they seem to be working okay, but I could probably tweak this quite a bit. Every time I make an adjustment to these, it resets them to 0. If I've got that's going to be the same as the big camera. Stop the camera. If I put it low, it's going to turn the camera on real quick, and then I'm going to get a lot more FaceTime, but it's also going to be, there's a potential of turning the camera on when I'm not really planning on talking very much. So getting that balanced is tricky. Oh, I just changed the number, so it went back to 0. So if I talk for a little while here and get this number up, I'll get a sense of how much padding that gives me. So this number can tick up quicker. I've got fewer samples. And this number here, as it's building up data over a longer period of time, that number is going to be more stable, is the basic idea. So the level that the volume has to drop to here is 3. And once it gets below 3, it will turn off the camera. Yeah, that's probably too long. So I don't really want to have it like just lingering with me on the camera when I'm not actually going to be talking to the audience. I want to have a little bit more control over it than that. I do think I'll change my lighting ready. Maybe bump that up to a 2nd. That'll give me less of a bloom. Effect on when the lighting kicks in. All right, now we'll see what that looks like. A whole second. I'll go back over here so I can know when the thing's going to kick on. Yeah, we got the lighting on. Yeah, less bloom. So just those little tweaks right there, I think, have improved it quite a bit. I think I'm going to record those changes I made to the audio as well. Then I changed the show start camera samples. Are those stored in default values? Start camera samples, where's that? Let me minimize you. And one of these is going to have, I think it's in there. Where do I set those? Start camera. Oh, okay, I see these. So where am I setting that? Oh, it's that number right there. Okay, so we've got start small camera samples 20. Let's try making this 30. It'll do a little bit less erratic. So moving average to stop the camera. I went way up on that one. I used to have that at 25, so it had a much more aggressive fall off. But that means it's going to start. Let's do the big camera at 80. So we got the small camera going, 30. Stop camera at 100. All right. So let those numbers build up a little bit. That'll give me a better sense of it. Okay, now we got that there. And then my stop camera level is also like totally arbitrary. I have a start camera level. Yeah, my show camera level is at 4. So I make it easier to go off than to go on. All I have to do is keep that above 3, and it's gonna keep talking, keep a camera active. Oh, it's behind my head. As long as that stays above 3, I'm not gonna turn the camera off. That's what I have that value right there as. I hadn't planned on recording this much. Input level limit. Oh yeah, anything above 10 I count as 10. And that might be something I need to adjust down to. That might be too high. But yeah, a little bit of a bloom there. Not as much as I did in the other one. And this I don't mind when I put the mouse there and take it away. Having it come back fairly quickly seems to make sense. And then you may have noticed I've got this little background effect. I can turn that off, but I don't think it looks very good. There's a kind of a halo effect around my hair where it's doing the green screen effect. If I had a nicer camera, that would probably be less noticeable. But I have a real cheapy Logitech camera, and it is I think it is recording at 1080p, but it's not a very it doesn't have a very good color sensor and all that, and even if it's recording at 1080p, 1080p is really not that much for doing video, where it's trying to get, you know, where the green might be between my hairs or something like that. I wouldn't be outputting video higher than 1080, but if I was recording at 2K or 4K video, that green screen effect is going to look a lot better. It won't be as glitchy. And in the big camera there, I might even need to adjust it up because my hair was poking out the top. But I think it's pretty good for a first go. And I think these numbers here are working better. I'm not seeing, doesn't seem like it's as finicky. Let me see if I've got it all saved. So I've got that as 100, that is 30, that is 80. Start and stop are the same. And I need to add another adjuster for controlling when it's recent input. I have that hard coded. Why not? I'll do that live. So here we go to as recent. We'll see how that works. So he's checking to see if that's a recent or that's a recent. And these guys decide that using a threshold, which is different. I guess I've got it locked in. Got it locked in at 5 seconds. I can't imagine why I'd ever want to set those differently. So I'm just gonna nuke that one. Is unless I want to make mouse count for more. Yeah, I'll do them separate. I'll leave them separate. But need to make the keyboard ones settable. All right, then I'll go over to my inputs view. Do I have a slider in here already? Yeah, there's a slider. Let me go grab a time span slider. Okay, so on my inputs, I want to grab that value. Put that there. I'll do the same thing for you can see in the how often I switch monitors. Alrighty, make sure that looks right in my preview. I'm getting towards the end of what will show in my configured space. Let's go big. Alrighty. Is that the way my others look? Yeah, system object. All right, that'll probably work. I had thought there's something else that was hard coded. What was it? I mentioned it earlier. It was one of the, maybe it was just this one. Let me have a look at this view model. So we got the threshold for the keyboard. Looks good. Let's see the timer. No, not him. The delay. Oh yeah, the ready state timer. That's the one I wanted. Minimum time for ready state. Yeah, I don't think I have. I want to go back to my inputs before I forget and just set these thresholds here. Got the I've got those set in the definitions for the properties, but I'd rather have it where I can see it. Maybe that one too. Okay. Now, here we go, the ready state. So, the ready state, do I set that anywhere? Oh, I do have an adjustment for that. Minimum time for ready state. Lighting ready after. Okay. Okay, that was the value. I've already got an input for that. Okay. I'm in ready state, minimum time for ready state. Time between light changes. I think I got a setting for that. And then the delays for on and off are right there. Check these. What level limit? He's got one. What the heck? That was weird. This was grabbing like the whole class or something. Audio capture devices, moving at samples. Let me see this. If that's there. Max. Oh, that's the observed value. So that I just show. It's display only. When you find yourself confused, change it. What's the other one's called? Max. I don't know why I thought max is the maximum observed over that, but it's like, it's kind of stupid to call it max when it's really an average. Okay, so we got the observed levels. So now I'll remember what that's for when I look at it again. Should show. Those are all calculated. Those are calculated, so that's that. And does he have any other timers? That guy. I could even put a timer slider. Where I was editing those timings before, I could make that in the app configurable, but doesn't seem very important. Let's see what we got in here. Most of these are just to show. Do I even have anything that's editable? Delay before transition. That probably is the only one. Almost everything else is going to be not settable. That's the address to connect to. Okay, so there's nothing to edit in there. And the only other one to look at is this guy. Okay, I know I have settings for those. A desired line, effective switch off. Oh yeah, that's a calculated. Spanner, yep. There's an input. Yep, I've got a setting for that. I know I've got a setting for that. I know I've got a setting for that. I know I've got one for that too. So is there any timing in here? There is a debounce time on the lighting. This throttle, where is he? Throttle. Okay, so the gap on the throttle, do I have that configurable? Get this going over here. And right there, it turned off the audio pretty quick. So I'll probably want to change my audio off. This number is pretty consistently below 1. Probably want to, oh, well, let me bump that any lower. Go to my audio view. Now let me set that all the way up to whatever I've got the level limit at. Not a property I'm familiar with, so I'll just do the long way. Probably not necessary. I'll let me take that down all the way to 1. And it's constantly getting a little noise because I've got music playing in the background. Let me see if I can edit this right now, though. Yeah, I can just edit it. So 1.5 is, I think, what I want to try. Yeah, it's probably a little too generous. Let's do 2. So it's below 2 already, but that's fine. So once I talk for a little bit, this will bounce back up. We got the show set at 4. Maybe that should be a little lower. Maybe it should be 3.5. So once we talk for a little bit, and the camera's been off and the light's been off long enough, all the things are true. We'll get the camera, and it switched up to big because I haven't moved the mouse. Not too bad. Did I put that in yet? Nope. Restart the app. So my stop timer down here. It's pretty easy to get below 3. That's that little break in talking there took me below 3, and that's what it was at before. 2.5 might be a good number. That seems like it drops pretty fast. Let's get it at 2.5. Alrighty, now I got it at 2.5, so we'll kick on at 3.5, and we'll do the timing delays, and we get the light, we got the camera. Alright, then if I take little breaks, I'm thinking about what to say next. Let's see, this guy's dropping down to the 3 range, but if I start talking again, it's kind of bouncing back up above 3. And that does seem kind of a comfortable pace. I don't want to have it a whole lot lower than that. Ooh, I got it to 2.6. And there we go. Yeah, that seems pretty good. I'm gonna save that. Okay, so I've got that show 3.5. Stops at 2.5. Put these in the order they are. At 100, 30, 80. This kind of seems redundant to have this here. It should always be the same. Let's see. Yeah, it's always going to be the same. I don't know why I'd want to be able to see that. I've got that thing minimized. I'm going to get rid of that. I think it's kind of confusing putting the level below. I'm going to move it above. Which one did I just grab? Top camera level. So I gotta go up to I think I want it there. This next one is going to be about start. Grab him, put him above. I already put those new sliders. Yeah, there they are. Now look at this. Now the number of samples that I've got there. I wonder if I've got that. No, I'd already tweaked the numbers. I changed the timing on how frequently it grabs them, but I've already recalibrated, so that's fine. So I'll turn him off. We'll get it going again. Oh, I might have crashed. I don't see the app. Let's see what I did. Is not, oh, I hooked the binding up wrong. Hello, Control F. Good grief. Oh, when the app is running and stuck in breakpoints, I have a global keyboard handler. And Windows, it's kind of funny. It eventually, if you're not a good citizen, it eventually cancels your handler. But when I'm in debug, it's obviously not being a good citizen. Yeah, copy paste doesn't work. Let me see if I can do it with the mouse. Where is his last keyboard? That's a one-way binding. Oh, here it is. Okay, what was I supposed to get? Recent keyboard event threshold. There it is. I did that one wrong too. Okay. All right, we got an application. By the way, for the record, that little error pop-up is expected. There's an exception, and I have in the networking code, I've got this wrapped in try catches, and I've got all these properties turned on to say, hey, this isn't user code. I don't want to ever see a debugger dropping in here, but starting with Visual Studio 2017, there's a guy in the Microsoft team who rewrote their exception handling code, and although they did make this menu better, and there's some neat new things they added. He broke the old way of doing things that had been the case all the way to Studio 2015, where if you had those attributes, you wouldn't get a breakpoint triggered when the exception's thrown. But now the way it works is every time you get an exception thrown for the first time, you have to manually skip it. And then it'll skip that same point from then on, and I find it extremely annoying. Yeah, it's after 3 seconds. Boom. And this is just UDP code. It has to, it has a timeout set at 1.5 seconds. That's the only way to get the UDP resources to actually be deallocated in the OS is to have this synchronous method call. And instead of returning, you know, hey, I wasn't successful, like a try receive method, nope, they have this one that generates an exception. So thanks, Microsoft. So there's basically no way around that one. They have some code that you can receive. It's kind of like a try receive where it doesn't generate an exception, but it won't release the resources. So when you never get a UDP response, which is sometimes the case, because they might have missed the packet, it will have some resources dangling. And all the documentation and the source code that I've looked at, just like drilling through their sources and seeing how they do everything, there's quite a bit that they end up allocating on the fly that they're holding on to, and then they have this receive async where it won't generate an exception, but that guy creates a task, and that task just sits out there and never finishes. This little guy here. Let's keep drilling on in. Yeah, he's creating a task object that will be forever stuck in memory. It won't ever deallocate. So every time I do a refresh and send a UDP packet out, I'm eventually going to get one that doesn't get an answer, and that one will never be recovered if you use that. So this guy here is, they have a documentation promise to deallocate. Now whether they have a bug, who knows? But the documentation says this is supposed to deallocate the resources. But I get that nice exception. Let me just make sure while I'm in here that I got my new menu options. Yep. Okay, so I can edit those. So now I could set the mouse timeout sooner. Yeah, so only counted as 1.5 seconds. Might be kind of interesting because the mouse is a lot less important if I'm typing. I probably don't want to have a camera come up a little bit longer, but using the mouse kind of infrequently. On the flip side, I could have the camera coming on. Well, it actually doesn't prevent the camera from coming on, does it? Just the big camera. Still got a little bit of cold and pneumonia. It's taken a little while to get rid of, but I'm basically cured, but my cough doesn't know it yet. And the cough gives me a sore throat, so my voice sounds kind of like Phoebe from Friends when she got sick. I want to have a singing career. I should probably do it quick. Yeah, so the recent mouse threshold being a little lower, kind of interesting, but it causes the camera to go up pretty quick, but maybe too quick. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I think I've recorded enough. I'm gonna kill the broadcast in that 2 hours. Thanks for the support. Oh, he grabbed it back. Yeah, I don't have the cameraman's not really locking it on that. It's just using a hole in the logic where it doesn't know what to do with that state. So until it gets a signal to switch to one of the other known states, it kind of will stick there. But I want to have a big button, maybe even probably a keyboard shortcut too, where I can flip it over to the be right back kind of screen. Actually, I'll probably have a separate one. This screen is kind of like my credits. I might put it on after the show. If I had some like people do tips or something, I might leave it on that screen for a few minutes after I'm kind of finished. I'll go make coffee or something, then come back and kill the broadcast just to show a little appreciation to those people. But let me turn the music on louder. But I need a be right back screen or when I need to just run to the other room or something. Or my dog came and visited me a couple times during this one. There'll be times when he needs something and I want to go check on him. I'm not sure about this. I think I'll probably leave that for now at 5. But I could probably play with some of these, like maybe 3.5 seconds. Maybe that's a good enough number for going big camera. The basic idea is I didn't want to go big camera unless I'm actually kind of stopped. I don't want to be switching in and out of that all the time. That didn't seem too bad, 3.5. So no keyboard, no mouse, 3.5 seconds. Big camera. Yeah, 3.5. I kind of like that. We'll save that too. Oh, and then got the running debug. Alrighty. Then the most important thing to do after a good run, let me make sure I got my latest libs. Yeah. Do my check-in. Working really well. Yeah, I added the mouse highlighting. Highlighting. Can't spell that word. What else did I did? I just declared some resources. Yeah. I renamed the controller. One thing I will say is I made the logic for controlling the Belkin switches in a separate little library that doesn't have really enough features to kind of like present it as a home automation library, and there's functional gaps. Let me turn this on so let it turn the camera on and off appropriately. It has a capability of monitoring over the network to find these Belkin Wemo switches. I didn't do anything for any of their other devices, but adding support for some of their other devices wouldn't be too hard. But they have a pretty crappy UPnP support. I even have to check right now. They have this app on the phone where they can periodically push firmware to the thing. I'll see if they've got a new firmware update. It's been a couple weeks at least since I looked at this. This is the Wemo app. Oh, you can't even see it on that screen. It's all just white. Oh, it's like making it invisible. That's interesting. Well, it's actually white with green, so the green is going invisible. And probably where it's reflecting the cloth in the background. Whatever. So the no firmware update, it did 2 refreshes, and I didn't say anything about a firmware update. I don't see any. Click here to download firmware option. Set up. Yeah, it doesn't have very many options. It's a pretty terrible app. I'm gonna kill it because it always hangs up. But essentially, their network logic that's in that switch is really crappy. I'll give you an example. I built a little UPnP web server so that I can get events posted back, and I'll actually show you what that looks like now that I'm thinking about it. Even though I said I was done, this is actually kind of interesting. And I worked on this a while before I had the idea for this cameraman. I wanted to just make a simple little app that could float up here to manually turn the camera on and off, maybe have a keyboard shortcut. And I found some pretty good home automation apps, but I didn't find something that was as simple as I wanted, or that I could like just make really small. I added too many tabs, make the font, but I used to be able to. The goal is just to have a tiny little app where I just manually turn the light on and off, and do a keyboard shortcut or whatever. But I'll turn this off so the app doesn't fight me, and then I'll do just send a command through if this then that, turn it off, or to toggle it. So it thought it was okay. There it goes. And then my user interface, it blinked right away. So I'll toggle it again. And it's not querying the device. It registered a subscription. And what's interesting is that the device doesn't document this, but it can only have one active subscriber at a time, because I've got a fairly nice home automation app I found, Home Remote. Yeah, if he signs up for requests, oh, where do I have the camera? There's a camera. The whole time I was talking, this wasn't on the camera. My app's not getting that notification anymore, but if I refresh, when I refresh, it kind of messes up their app because I'm taking the subscription. Now I'll do it with if FF, whatever it's called. Okay, so I got that one. Let me make sure I'm still winning. Then another one. Yeah, it came on right away. Yeah, this app is also asking for subscriptions, so they end up in a battle. Whoever sent the last request has a subscription. Pretty stupid. So that's one little gripe. I don't have anything else on my network fighting me for control, but other than getting that event pseudo real time, the only other option would be to poll it. And I originally had this thing set up to just poll the thing every so often. In my setup, there's nothing else controlling this, so it was more just a curiosity. But the wanting to know, when I saw the smart home remote that it was getting the signal right away, I opened up a Wireshark and did a debug and whatever, and saw the UDP packets, went and read the documentation on the UPnP protocol, went back and looked at their schemas and figured out how it was all working. And then I made my really, really basic WebSocket server to receive the request it's getting. And let me see where this method's called from. This is the one I'm looking for. Process client request. Okay, so this was a huge gripe. Let me see which one is the right one. Okay, yeah, I don't use that one anymore. So where is this called? Alrighty, here we go. So in this code here, I'm receiving a request, and this is it's notifying me, hey, my state's changed, and it's sending me data. But if I put these two, so normally what you'd want to do is you'd want to receive the request, see what's there, see what they sent you, and then send them a response, say like, yeah, 200 okay, or an error or something. But the way the Wemo code, their networking code, and this also goes back to like Windows networking code, because they changed the network stack somewhere around Vista, I think. Windows Vista. Let me turn the camera guy back on. But Windows Vista got new. I don't even think it was on the right monitor. I think I've got an interaction bug where if I turn this off, it can get in a situation where it's not reliably changing monitors sometimes, maybe. I'm not looking at the broadcast software all the time, so it may have actually been correct. But you normally want to, in like TCP land, if an arbitrary OS determined amount of time passes between like having received some data and the TCP protocol, you can send an acknowledgement packet saying, hey, I got the data, I'm doing something with it. And that's perfectly valid in the TCP protocol. Any TCP client should be expecting and should be able to handle an acknowledgement packet. But I think the Belkin guys just did a half-assed TCP implementation in UDP. I don't think they're using a TCP library, or if they are, they're using a terrible one. Either way, they can't handle an acknowledgement packet. If I send an ACK packet, it breaks and they abort, and I can't get the whole request, and I can't send them. The device kind of gets into a hung state. Doesn't know what to do with that acknowledgement packet. So I think pre-Windows Vista, if I were to process the incoming data really quickly and send a response really quickly, like this response processing code takes less than a millisecond to run. It's probably on the order of a couple microseconds. So that should be enough time so that the operating system isn't generating that acknowledgement packet. However, I could not find any way to get Windows to not send that acknowledgement packet, except as if I completely ignore the request. So what it's doing, it gets a request, then I've like pre-serialized these standard response into a set of bytes, and it's a HTTP 200 OK. So dumb. But if I send that immediately, the Wemo's OK. And it's really weird because the home remote, whatever they're doing, it's technically, well, it's a Windows Store app, so it might be precompiled .NET, it might be C++, but if it's a desktop app that they just shrunk wrap for the Windows Store, I might be able to decompile the DLL and see what they're doing, or if they have a library they're calling. There might be a good like UPnP library that's implemented in pure UDP. So rather than like relying on the Windows TCP stack, you're just doing all the UDP yourself. I thought about doing that because this was so frustrating. So it doesn't seem the home remote, and when I did a network trace on them, there is a delay. They are processing the response. My response gets sent as fast or faster than theirs did, but mine was generating an acknowledgement packet in between, which caused the Wemo to barf. So I think theirs is a pure UDP implementation. I don't think it's using the Windows TCP stack. Because otherwise I think they'd get the same issue. But that said, this does work. But if any other incoming request were to come through on this port, my stupid little server is gonna tell them it's okay, which I think is really dumb, but it works. That's how I'm able to get the real-time notifications from the switch, and he does do his thing perfectly well. And if there is some magic combination of socket options, I tried a bazillion things. I tried changing the buffers. I spent a whole day just trying to figure out why I couldn't put those two statements in the right order. None of these options helped at all. I was tempted to try doing, I'm using blocking mode sockets. I thought about trying to see if I could do asynchronous sockets, but it's a lot of work. There's a lot of boilerplate code that has to be written, a lot of error handling that blocking sockets already do for you. And I'm pretty sure it's still going to do an acknowledgement packet. So, that's in the TCP stack. And asynchronous sockets, there is a little bit less overhead, but it's still on top of that TCP stack. So I don't anticipate that helping. I thought that would be another few hours of work minimum to get that working, and then it probably wouldn't make any difference. And I don't feel like trying to look up the TCP spec on how to implement a pseudo TCP layer in software just to communicate with Wemo. If there's a library I could call that would do it, that'd be cool. But and whoever did that home remote thing, they actually have a vast selection of doohickeys that they work with. That's pretty darn impressive. And they'll search for all the different kinds of Wemo stuff. So I only built something for just the basic light switch. Do I even have any of these other things? I wonder if they support Time Warner. I have an Arlo. I have a Marantz. Let's see if it finds my Marantz. I know when I send out the UDP packet asking for who's there, my Marantz receiver always pings me. I don't know why they're not detecting it. Maybe mine's too old. I think it's a 2000 10 model. Might be too old. I have an Arlo. Okay, it finds my Arlo. I don't know if I want to let them talk to my Arlo or not. I don't have that many. I don't have that many. Really, I only have the Wemo. We've got DirecTV, but I don't see Spectrum or Time Warner. See what DNLA comes up with. You'll see the Xbox. You'll see the cable box. I found my Surface. Well, that's actually kind of cool. Those buttons aren't lit up though. Waiting for connection timeout. That doesn't sound good. Well, that's not very impressive. You can turn it off. This doesn't seem to do anything. I thought that might be play pause. The track buttons are disabled. I can turn random on. Click mute. I didn't even mute it. Yeah, whatever. Windows Media Player supported DNLA. Maybe I'll have to get some more. But anyway, I'm kind of impressed with their availability, but if it's kind of like the one I just pulled up, maybe it's not that actually solid. But I don't feel like trying to create a full-blown app, but just looking at what's available in the home automation software space for being able to define complex rules or whatnot, there does seem to be a pretty big gap there. Like the if this then that service is, it's okay. It's pretty slow if you're trying to actually do home automation. That feels like, you know, you've got a Jarvis or something driving your stuff when you walk in a room, waiting for if this then that. It's like 9 seconds when I tap the button. 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000, 4 1000, 5 1000, 6 1000, 7 1000, 8 1000, 9 1000, 10 1000, 11 1000. There it goes. Because I had home automation open, the home remote, it didn't realize it. But it did a refresh and just happened to catch it. So that's going to be the end of my little broadcast here. Can't think of anything else to go over at this time. I'll come up with some more stuff for later.